Will you do me a favor and just say, like, welcome to Skaneateles or something like that?
No, you know what we actually say in Skaneateles? Relax, you're in the village.
From Frequency Media, this is Globocurious, an immersive travel podcast about the magic of curiosity, discovery, and human connection. I'm Michelle Corey, and this week we're headed to an all-American village in the heart of the Finger Lakes, Skaneateles, New York. What did you think of when I said all-American just now? Was it bright lights and towering skyscrapers? Or perhaps it was stone statues and cobblestone streets. Or maybe it was sprawling cornfields, dairy farms, and steel factories. The answer, and what makes the US so interesting, is all of the above. And more. All-American can mean many things to many people. For instance, while I was born in the US, I'm the child of two Latin American immigrants and was raised in Miami, Florida, a city that's culturally and geographically closer to the Caribbean or South America than it is to, say, the Midwestern US. My childhood memories are shaped by dancing cumbia at family gatherings, hearing many languages on the daily, and eating an apple-in-the-mouth lechona at every Christmas. I am an American-born citizen, but there have been many moments throughout my life in which I've been reminded of just how far removed from true American culture I am. And even saying that, true American culture, is like saying kaleidoscope to refer to one color. Similarly, American culture morphs depending on the lens through which we view it. It has within it many facets that are generally crystallized by racial and geographic differences. In upstate New York, you'll find a merger of white and Black American history that I haven't yet found in any other region of the US. It's a place where European settlers and African enslaved peoples intertwined and formed joint communities far before other regions fully integrated. You can feel the sense of community and togetherness in this place where the Underground Railroad thrived, where Irish immigrants built legacies from steel, and where the salt of the earth ethos is more literal than you may realize.
Syracuse is known as the Salt City because there's a lot of salt in water and in the land. There were salt flats on Onondaga Lake.
They would take the water, where the salt flats were, and lay it out to dry. And then it would crystallize, and then they would sell it.
Those are my sister-in-law's parents, Monk and Kathy O'Connor. You may be wondering how I landed in Skaneateles of all places. Well, they are the reason. This lakeside village is where my sister-in-law Carrie was raised, and where her mother Kathy was raised, and where her father Lewis Wellington was raised. In fact, it's where the Wellingtons established themselves more than 175 years ago. This is a fragment of a classic American story that feels almost like it belongs in the pages of great American literature. Generations born on the same block, industries built from the land, and close-knit communities where trust is honored. So basically the polar opposite of my Miami upbringing, which is why I was absolutely flabbergasted by the concept of farm stands in Skaneateles, where residents put the harvest from their own land up for sale on a simple roadside stand, completely unsupervised.
Like peaches, apples, squash, flowers.
Okay, does anyone have cash? Wait, that's right. This is an honor system. You just leave your cash.
Yes.
There's just no one manning this.
Skaneateles has the kind of charm that many try to manufacture, and the kind of lifestyle so many wealthy people end up aspiring to have, which is how Skaneateles became a magnet for the ultra-rich and famous. Something I learned as soon as I stepped foot on the O'Connor's Party Boat, a pontoon-style boat made strictly for relaxing on the lake. That's where Kathy, the unofficial family historian, gave me the lay of the land. Or should I say, water.
Awesome. So they're all glacier lakes. This is how they were made. It's the glaciers up through, and then they melted, and it's all fed by underground springs.
It's 400 feet deep.
In places, yes. In spots that you don't expect. So you have to be careful because there's shelves of shale, and then boom, down it goes. This is very, very, very desirable because the water's so clean. I mean, this is...
That pristine, untreated quality is reflected by the village itself. And it's no surprise since water is what brought this tiny place to life.
When people would settle for an area, they would look for water because water would run their flour mills, their woolen mills.
And their steel mills.
So Monk worked at the steel mill as an electrician.
There are these like open pits where they're melting the steel down and it's super bad air quality. He had this moment thinking, I could so easily die working here, or it could shorten my life. He was like, I want to like be around for my daughter. And so he had to like come up with a new thing to do, and he realized that there was no pizza in Skaneateles.
Whoa.
And so it's not that Monk is chef extraordinaire, he just saw a business opportunity.
Gathering inspiration and courage from friends who owned pizza and deli shops elsewhere, Monk saw the potential for a better life for him and his growing family. So he left the steel mill to start Valentine's, a pizza shop named after Carrie's great-great-grandfather. That choice marked something far greater than a career change. Valentine's became a gathering place, woven into the fabric of Skaneateles life. A place where neighbors catch up over pizza, where generations of families meet with a sense of warmth and belonging. Monk's story reflects the spirit of this town. Families committed to building something lasting, not only for themselves, but for everyone around them. As we strolled down Skaneateles' main street with its charming lineup of family-run shops and local eateries, the deep-rooted connections were palpable. Here, each business feels like a piece of the village's identity, a testament to the people who have poured their lives into making Skaneateles what it is today. This village, it holds on to its legacy, not as a curated relic, but as a living, breathing community where generations keep adding to the story. And sometimes in a pretty hilarious way.
Go ahead, honey.
During Christmas, they have something called Dickens Christmas. And they're in character, and Scrooge walks around, the ghost of Christmas past, all of these things. Yeah, and they used to come into Valentine's. And to get food. Yeah. They'd like take out like a Pepsi, and they'd be like, oh, what is this bubbly liquid? And I'd be like, it's a Pepsi. Do you want to buy it? They're like,
Moments like these make this village feel like a living postcard. But beyond the nostalgia, this community is real and vibrant. In a town like Skaneateles, survival is about connection to the land, to the people, and to the past. For someone like me, who's more used to the fast-paced, transient nature of ever-sprawling cities, there's something magical about a place that honors its history while shaping new traditions. It's a place that has grown and adapted but hangs on tightly to its roots. About 25 minutes away, driving into Auburn, New York feels like stepping back in time. The roads wind through lush, green landscapes that seem to stretch endlessly. With historic houses lining the streets, each one a snapshot of classic American architecture. White picket fences, wraparound porches, and clapboard siding speak to a bygone era. This is where Harriet Tubman built a home, a farm, and a sanctuary of strength and purpose. Speaking of all-American, Harriet is a classic American icon and hero. Born into slavery in Maryland in 1822, Harriet successfully escaped in 1849 and spent the rest of her free life fighting for the abolition or end of slavery. She assisted in the rescue of at least 70 enslaved people, most famously through the harrowing routes of the Underground Railroad, and even spent a good few years working as a spy for the Union Army during the Civil War. After learning Harriet's home was in Auburn, I obviously had to experience this monumental place for myself. As we approached Harriet Tubman's property, the scenery opened up to reveal a large plot of land, verdant and peaceful, with a quiet weight of history hanging in the air. The property itself is expansive, featuring 2 old homes and 2 administrative buildings, including the visitor center. Inside the visitor center, rows upon rows of folding chairs faced a long board with a static timeline of Harriet Tubman's life. The space may be outdated in a world of digital displays and high-tech museums, but that's because it relies on a far more personal way of sharing Tubman's legacy. As we entered, Reverend Paul Carter, the site manager who's been bringing Harriet's story to life for decades, was already mid-sentence, passionately recounting a story.
I have no clue.
With a warm smile and a quick joke, Rev Paul immediately broke the ice.
Hello? Hello. Come on in there. You've already opened the door. Hi, are you here to join us? Sure. Can they join you too? Yeah. Consensus is yes.
We found our seats, and within moments, we were hanging on his every word. His animated storytelling transported us, making the static timeline come alive with the energy of Harriet's extraordinary life. It was as if we were walking alongside her, feeling her determination, hearing her voice, and witnessing her triumphs and struggles firsthand. Rev Paul told us about Harriet's strategic mind and entrepreneurial spirit, which were pivotal to her success and survival. In my opinion, one of Harriet's most impressive skills was her ability to build close alliances and friendships with influential white abolitionists, particularly men, like the radical abolitionist John Brown, who would eventually give his life to the cause of ending slavery in the U.S.
But most people do not know that Harriet Tubman and John Brown were real good friends. Such good friends that he's the one who gave her the nickname General Tubman.
She paid homage to John Brown when she acquired the very property we stood on by outbidding others at a public auction, an especially bold move for a Black woman at that specific time in American history.
Well, they say the bid got all the way up to $1,400. After that, no one else bid it. Things fell silent. And then, all of a sudden, from the back of the room, a voice screamed, $50! So she was able to get 25 acres of land for $1,450. It was at that point she started moving people out of her personal home into the other 7+ buildings that were on this property. And at some point she opened up this facility that she eventually called the John Brown Home for the Aged and Infirm Negroes.
With her newly secured land, Harriet created a sanctuary. This property became her foundation for providing shelter to those escaping slavery, a base for her humanitarian work, and a space where she could cultivate a life of dignity and purpose. But as rare as it was at that time, this wasn't even the first piece of land the 5'2" force of good had acquired.
But if you look across the field, you'll see a brick house with a barn behind it. That's the 7 acres of land that she purchased with the help of William Seward.
One of Harriet's key relationships in her lifetime was with William Henry Seward, a staunch abolitionist and eventual Secretary of State under Abraham Lincoln. Seward felt so deeply aligned with Harriet's mission that he sold her a piece of property in Auburn, a remarkable transaction at a time when Black women rarely owned land, especially in predominantly white areas. We explored the grounds with an even deeper reverence after learning everything Harriet had gone through to attain it. Then, Rev told us about his own family's close ties to the land.
The last family to live in Harriet's house before they started the restorations on it was me and my family. It was not the best living conditions by no spark of the imagination, but it was an honor to live in Harriet's house for a little while.
Rev and his wife uprooted their lives in Washington, D.C. to move to Auburn for the sole cause of caring for this property and ensuring Harriet's story endures.
But we both did it because we both believe that it is always better to live life for a cause rather than living life just because. So this became our cause because we understood that if we did not keep telling our stories the way our stories are supposed to be told, that one day they would be out of our hands, out of our control, and at that point they wouldn't even be called our stories anymore. At that point they would be called his story. Story. And if it ever becomes his story, he can change the dialogue to suit his own needs.
They did this as part of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, whose roots have been intertwined with Harriet's for over a century. In fact, endowing the land to the church was one of the last things Harriet did.
1903, she transfers the ownership of this 25 acres of property that we're on over to the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. The African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church takes over the remaining mortgage on the property and pays it off. This property still belongs to the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, and that denomination gives X amount of dollars every year to keep the lights on, so that you can come in for tours, along with your admissions you get when you come in, and by all means, any donations you choose to leave in our donation box helps us tremendously.
I'd learned about Harriet Tubman since grade school, and yet only being there on the grounds where she lived out some of her greatest dreams at the end of her days truly taught me a deeper side of the story, which is what makes national parks like these crucial.
Good news, chariots coming, good news, chariots coming, good news, chariots coming, and I don't want it to leave me behind.
Leaving the Harriet Tubman House, the striking natural beauty that defines this region of New York came into sharp focus. Driving back towards Skaneateles, the scenery transformed into a patchwork of dusty yellow cornfields, emerald forests, and sapphire lakes. The Finger Lakes region is a place where nature seems to hum with life, and nowhere is this more evident than at the Green Lakes State Park. The park packs an unforgettable visual punch with lake waters that shimmer in shades of turquoise and cerulean blue. I meandered the 2-mile lakefront path with Monk, who, despite having been to this park time and again, couldn't help but marvel at its beauty.
This really is so beautifully blue.
Yeah, and like I say, when it's really bright sunny at 3 o'clock it's supposed to be, then you really see that Caribbean look.
Wow.
Skaneateles has a way of inviting you into its rhythm. Whether it's the stillness of its lake at sunrise, the quiet stories whispered by its history, or the warmth of its people.
Just read the instructions. No, it was something about, it was in the...
We returned to Monk and Kathy's lake house to make dinner with the ingredients we had gotten from the farm stand, including freshly shucked corn. I meandered down the outdoor stairs to the dock to say my goodbyes to the lake. Standing there that final evening, watching the sun dip below the dense lakefront trees, I thought about what it must feel like to have generations before you walk the same streets, live under the same roofs, and hold the same land. I felt the quiet ache of not having that same connection to any one place. Rather than being tethered to a single plot of land, my roots are scattered across continents, across cultures. And yet, a place like Skaneateles, through its people mainly, shows you that roots don't have to be inherited. They can be made, or even discovered. Roots can form from the stories we inherit, the traditions we honor, and the memories we create with the people we love. Thank you for joining me for our Skaneateles adventure. On the next episode of Globocurious, we venture across the world to the luminescent cityscapes and serene mountains of Taiwan. We'll learn about this island's fascinating history of colonizer tug-of-war, explore the country's captivating blend of ancient traditions and modern life, and learn a bit of Taiwanese Mandarin, all in one of the most unforgettable destinations I've ever visited. Until next time, stay curious. Globocurious is an original production of Frequency Media. I'm Michelle Corey, the host, writer, and executive producer. Lizzie Stewart is our producer. Claire Bidigary Curtis is our sound designer and mixer. Jessica Olivier is our creative consultant and script editor. Special thanks to Rev Paul, the O'Connors, and my family for allowing me to capture our experiences.
I've been here for a few months. I always like to let people know that. That way, if you did not like the story that I just told you about Harriet, you can turn to each other and say, well, honey, what do you expect? He's only been there for a few months right here. Yeah. I've been here for 34 years, but don't tell me.